Albert Einstein once observed that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another.
Hi, and welcome to the Satori Show with your host, Amy Satori, your intuitive spiritual counselor. Amy's work centers around the energy that is in everything and everywhere. Her rare ability is to identify the energy from any source, and with the help of her guides on the other side, provides an incredibly accurate assessment of what's really going on. Albeit with people living or past, pets, the human body, and her specialty, twin flame relationships. And now we're proud to announce that the show is live at the Lighthouse Bookstore every Sunday night from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time. So you can talk to Amy and see for yourself just how special her abilities really are. Just call 256-291-1191. So now sit back and join me, Kevin McDonald, as we present this episode of The Satori Show. And welcome to the show, everybody. It's The Satori Show with your host, Amy Satori, who's right here with me. Amy, hello. How are you?
Hello, everyone. We've got Boulder this weekend. It's pretty exciting. Got people, lots of people all over the place. I wasn't able to make it down to the Lighthouse Bookstore because they've got streets blocked out. So I in my bedroom.
We're doing it from a secret location.
Yeah.
Nobody knows where you are today. By the way, before we begin, I want to let everybody know again that Travis is with us. He is our producer. And hello, Travis. How are you?
I'm fine. Hello, everyone.
Oh, very good. So now what's going to happen is if you decide you want to call in to our show between 5:30 and 7:30 Pacific and 6:30, 8:30 Mountain, you will first of all talk to Travis, who will talk to you about what it is you'd like to do, whether you'd like to just listen to the show being done live, or if you have a question for Amy, in which case he will talk to you and put all of that together and make you feel comfortable, because he's really good at that. And then we'll bring you on and we'll talk about whatever it is that you'd like to talk about. But today, oh, by the way, that number, if you'd like to call in, is 256-291-1191. And you can call in and talk to us, or you can just listen to the show. It's totally up to you. It's a great avenue for you to do. But today, what I'd like to do, and this is based upon the feedback that we've gotten from callers, that I would really, or from people that have texted us and emailed us and messaged us, and I would like to address this because it really is an interesting aspect of what Amy does, and that is what Amy does, how Amy spends her week, and what it is, what it's like to be her doing what she does for a living, which is she's a reader at the Lighthouse Bookstore. She also does private readings, and if you go to www.amysatori.com, you can book a session with her, which I highly, highly recommend. If you have an issue, if you have a question, if you'd like some guidance, Amy does an extraordinary job at that. But I wanted to ask you, Amy, what's it like to be you, living in a spiritual existence like you do?
Entertaining.
Okay, so explain what you mean by entertaining.
I don't think I could be bored if I tried. I know how to turn it off. I do. I was just having a conversation with another psychic friend of mine that, she was observing someone, and she said, when somebody's walking along, do you see all, everything that's going on with that person? And I said, you know what? I just tend to mind my business. So I turn it off when I'm out in public and around people, unless, if I need to be warned of danger or something like that, they will break through to me and let me know. But I have pretty good boundaries about that. I don't like spying on anybody or obviously if I'm trying to counsel or help someone in a situation, I got to take a look at their environment and things like that. But I try to pretty much mind my own business. However, now, other creatures like unicorns, fairies, and all that fun stuff, if they want to deliver a message, then they will make themselves known and get my attention somehow. So sometimes I will say something about what I'm seeing to like a friend that's hanging out or whatever, but other times I just kind of listen to what they're telling me and I just, just take it for what it is. Sometimes I get songs.
Yeah, well, Amy, see, most of us have got like a job, a real job that we live in the world and we have to deal with the individuals and people and that sort of thing. Is it fair to say that you kind of live in a little bit of an alternative universe in that your job and your mission is to talk to the other side, is to give people wonderful advice and to counsel them. So it must be a little bit different for you living your day-to-day life than the rest of us.
I would say so. I would say I pay more attention to things going on in the subtle realms around me more than the typical person does. Yeah. I pay attention to my body. I pay attention to like what I'm feeling even in my body or what I'm feeling around me, what I'm sensing. I'm kind of more like it'd be like walking around with me is kind of like walking around with a deer, I suppose. Deer are very instinctive and they're always aware. So it's kind of like that.
Although I do have to say though, Amy, like based upon the conversation that we had yesterday. See, let me paint a picture for our audience. Yesterday, Amy was going to work at the lighthouse, and she was wandering or driving around trying to find a parking space. But like she has said, there's a big to-do going on in Boulder this weekend, so parking was at an absolute premium. And Amy turned down the wrong street and was the wrong way on a one-way street. Do you remember that, Amy?
This was within the parking garage. I went down the wrong way, and all these cars were coming at me.
And at that particular moment, Amy said words that I didn't even know that you knew those words that you were saying.
He's like, "You want me to let you go?" And I said, "I've got headphones on. I'm fine. I can get myself out of this. Just let me get through this for a second." I sweated for just a moment and squeezed on through. But because of the timing of it, I went right into a spot. So they were looking out for me.
Yes, they were, and they even excused your choice of words at that particular moment. Because so the fact, and the whole point I'm trying to make here is that even though you are somebody that is a spiritual person, and you're still human.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think you have to be. I don't care. I don't care who you are. I love this woman so much. One of my favorite mentors of the past. Her name is Judy, or Jude. People call her Jude. She is a sassy older gal who will say it to you straight. And she'll use the word fuck. She'll say shit. She will say it straight to your face, and she will say it in such a way that will stun you for the sweet old lady to say to you. You're just like, did that just happen? And you're like staring at her like, whoa. But with the way that she says it and with the power she says it in at that moment, it's exactly what you need to jar you to hear it like you're supposed to hear it. It's amazing. And I look up to her like no other. I mean, I have a reverence for her. She's so amazing, and she's so compassionate and so loving and so like awe-inspiring. And yeah, she just allows herself to be who she is, period. And I just love that. And I think it's about accepting yourself and being completely authentic. I used to tiptoe around and use all this like religious talk and stuff to please those around me, which was fine. You go through those periods, but when you can really just kind of let yourself be yourself in any situation, then you are that freedom that creates in your heart, and that freedom that enables you to just kind of settle in out of some kind of anxiety state of trying to please everybody around you. It really, it leaves you back in that space we're talking about, just being in that awareness, being in the aliveness, being aware that you're alive, and being really connected to the source and connected to God. So as much as like swearing sometimes can feel inappropriate, if someone's trying to just be vulgar and they're trying to be obnoxious and they're trying to do it to get attention, or they're trying to, if it depends on their intention. But if you're using it to make a point, if you're using it to shock on purpose, and it's a good thing, then it can be quite powerful. So,
Travis, did Amy just shock you with using those two words?
No. I hear and use those words on a daily basis.
Yeah, and Travis and I talk too, so he's heard me use them, I'm sure, at some point.
There is very little anybody can say to shock me at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but those words coming from a beautiful young lady like Miss Satori, it does. Amy, I do have to say, it does have an impact. When you use when you say when you use one of those words, it definitely has an impact. There are other people that I've had in my life that they use them all the time, and it kind of becomes second nature to them, and it becomes you become numb to it. So much to the fact that I'll look at somebody and say, you really need to expand your vocabulary. But in your case, you do. You do it to make
I have an expanded vocabulary.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, I say it to help, like a lot of times when I use it to help liberate someone. Just to really make a point of, drop that shit. And that just is so much better than, why don't you just let it go? There's just, it just, sometimes it just needs to be delivered with a little punch. Not always.
You did that to me just the other day.
Did I really?
Yeah. I was watching the news, which I am wont to do, as Travis can attest, that I enjoy watching the news. And in this particular case, there had been another unfortunately dreadful, awful, icky school shooting. Yeah. And I mentioned that to you, and you said, "Why do you listen? Or why do you watch that shit?" And it was like, "Well, I'm sorry. I just like I don't know." And then I turned it off.
You don't have to do everything I tell you to do either.
Well, but no, your point was
you can do whatever you darn well please.
Well, but your point was very well made. That when you watch stuff like that of a lower vibration, and it tends to lower your vibration, and it tends to lower your energy level, and it's really not healthy. It's good to know what's going on, but it's not healthy to fixate on it, which I have a want to do, because you watch the news and then you watch the next hour, and it's the same stuff said by a different host and all that stuff. So the best thing to do is to go inside yourself. But I did want to mention something to you that I haven't told you yet, that I wanted to. Last night, when I come home from work, generally what I do is I'll watch, surprisingly enough, the news late night just to catch up on stuff. But it's Saturday night and there was nothing on, so I went to YouTube, and I found my way to this incredible podcast that I listened to in its entirety, and that's the Amy Satori show, or the Satori Show, starring Amy Satori. Mm-hmm. It was the episode where Celeste talked to us for the first time, when I I blindsided you and outed you a little bit. That was an incredible show. I was fixated on it for the entire show because it was just awesome. And we subsequently have talked about Celeste, and we've talked about how she integrates with you. I'd like to talk a little bit about that, because it's kind of changed. In the beginning, we were talking about Celeste coming out and talking, but what we determined, explain how we determined that Celeste would like to be used effectively in your work.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you how the whole thing started in the first place. I didn't even know she was there. I'm not... I have done some formal training. I've done 3 levels of Qigong, professional levels of Qigong, and 2 different types of Qigong, and have I've put a lot of training into some of this, and Qigong is my background and my specialty. However, what I do is I try not to fit myself in a box on purpose because I just want to be directed by spirit purely. So sometimes you can get in your own way when you make it too structured, and it's like, no, you have to have 3 drops of this and 5 drops of that, or it's not going to work. So, I hear other people, oh, don't touch my cards or don't touch my crystals and things like that, and I just kind of look at them funny, like, well, you can just intend that they'll just be clear, like I do. Like, there's nothing that gets tainted in my stuff because I just assume it's always clear, and I do always clear it, and I pour love into it, and everything's just always clear. So there are ways around everything if you learn how to work with spirit, and you don't have to have everything be regimented and rule regulated. You can go with the flow. So back to how this happened is basically when I started to do these readings, what I would do is just go completely present and just be in that just really super loving place, that authenticity of who we are at our soul's level, directly connected to source. And I would look across at the person and just feel love. And then I would ask them the question I ask everybody when they sit down, and I just say, how can I help you? And then I would go through, typically, I started off doing the Qigong, so I would scan their energy system, and I would look for any kind of energetic blockages that would lead to physical ailments. So I might see a blockage in the heart. It might look like a heart that has kind of a crusty black material over it. So then I might feel the heart to see if it's like crusty and hard, or is it kind of like tar and you got to scrape it off, or like what kind of material am I dealing with here? So then I would just kind of feel into whatever I was seeing, and then I would see how it responds to me as I start to work on it energetically. And then I would learn to use different tools on the different things that I was seeing. And that kind of progressed as I went along. And then I learned shortcuts on how to make that, process faster, or, things like that. And then I would see like words written across that would tell me hints and clues, or I'd see a bottle of something that they should take, or, all kinds of different things that I experience as I go through this whole thing. So Jesus once told me that it doesn't really matter, what spirits come through, because if my intention is pure love, which it always is, then you block out any kind of negativity or evil or anything like that. Evil will always be won out by light and love. So there's just no way it can come in your space. I mean, it might try, it might flail up, it might flail around, it might do all kinds of things to try to mess with you, but it's not going to break through love. So anyway, when I was working with this energy, I was getting, I could sense and feel that there were a lot of different beings around me, and I was just super grateful working with them as a team and having them give me these messages. So I didn't necessarily know who was out there. I knew that there were, just to run through, I guess, a bunch of the creatures that are around me all the time would be like dragons and fairies and unicorns, mostly just one unicorn, but sometimes more. Definitely deceased ex-boyfriend is there a lot, and maybe a couple other dead people. Aliens, some extraterrestrials, and lots of angels, really huge angels. So, and those are just a few, just to name a few. But what happened was, one time, it's like my guides are always saying, no, you don't need to know, because people tend to feed their egos with it, and they tend to kind of brag. Well, I talked to Jesus, or I was once Cleopatra in a past life. I really was. It was quite extraordinary. And it's so hard now not to be that perfect queen that I was anymore. So, but anyway, I am this humble human now. But they, sometimes they get carried away with kind of bragging about who's talking to them, and it becomes all about that being. And so they were telling me, don't do that. Just use everything simultaneously. So I learned how to do that. So I have a number of different beings, and they get swapped out and everything. But it's almost like it seems like a funnel that pours down, and they kind of give a unified idea to me. So there might be, and sometimes there is over 100 beings, but they kind of like super lightning speed somehow. It's like they all download their ideas, and a consensus comes. Kind of like a gumball or something. Like there's all this information bouncing about, and all these beings are knowing that I'm going to be talking to all the people I'm going to be talking to. You know, all the people I do readings for, all the people who listen to the show. They know everybody. It's all their guides, my higher self, their higher selves. Everybody's trying to pour the information in and try to come to like some sort of a consensus that everyone needs to hear kind of thing. And then it comes through as one idea or a couple of ideas. Sometimes when I feel like 5 things coming through at once, I tell them, stop it. Please, just one for now. We're not, as humans, we're not as fast as they are. So I always have to ask them to please slow down or stop or tell me later, because I can't, you know, depending on what I'm doing and what I'm distracted with, I can't take it. So I started to get curious about light language from Vanessa Lamorte. I'm not sure how you pronounce her last name, but she's incredible to listen to. If you guys ever want to look her up on YouTube, she's pretty amazing. And I was listening to all her different languages, and some of them sounded really familiar to me. And after listening to her for a while, all of a sudden I remembered that there was a time when I was little, really, really little, and I remember talking some kind of language. And at the time I didn't know what it was. It was just kind of like babbling. And so I thought, well, if I spoke that as a child, maybe I'll try to pronounce some words that I remember saying. So I really was racking my brain trying to think, what was some of the stuff that I would say? You know, like what were some of the pronunciations? You know, they weren't necessarily words, but like what were some of the sounds that I was making? So I was trying to make those sounds, and I was just driving around in my car trying to make these sounds. And it was very choppy and sounded really weird, but I was really trying to speak this, what she calls light language, and just was practicing. And then I knew some other intuitives, and I'd ask them, like, how's it going on my light language? And they'd be like, well, the spirits say that you're like a 5-year-old. And I'm like, okay, 5's better than 1. So then I would keep practicing and keep letting the language come through me. And then it was like, oh, yeah, you're kind of like in middle school now. Ooh, middle school. Hey, that's pretty good. You know, and I just kept climbing the ladder until finally the girl I kept checking in with, she's like, oh, yeah, you're like college now. You're like a college grad now. And I said, oh, awesome. Okay. So when I would do this language for people in my readings, it took me a while to get brave enough to even do it in my readings, because it was kind of like, oh. But when I started to do it, people were reporting feeling like a tingling sensation in their chest, or they've just overall felt very peaceful, and they felt like this love energy. Sometimes the reader area between me and someone else, there would be like a smoke that filled up the room, or like a fog, and it would be evident to both of us, like, whoa, what's happening here? Could you see me? And it's like, wow, it's really foggy in here. Like we'd have to like kind of squint and be like, this is crazy. Like, where's that smoke coming from? Almost like somebody was smoking in the room, but there wasn't anything like that. So I was like, what the heck? This stuff is really powerful, and it all depends on your intention. And then you start experimenting with that, just like with the Qigong, and I started saying, okay, well, what if I have an intention for this when I work with somebody? And then I would see all these images and things kind of play out while I was talking to people. And then I would see what it did to them, and twice I've had people have a Kundalini awakening right in front of me. And that, like, blew my mind. I've had other things.
I wanted to stop you there, Amy, because I'm not exactly sure what a Kundalini experience is. Could you enlighten me as to what exactly that is?
Well, I've never studied it, to be completely honest, but it's kind of a combination of sexual energy and enlightenment. It's like being tapped into source, but through sexuality, in a way. I mean, I have to say here, I've been enlightened, and it was not a sexual experience for me, so they can be divided up. And I think some people think that you have to have a Kundalini experience in order to be enlightened, but that I didn't find that to be the case for me. And it can be different probably for everybody, but it like people who have it, and I have had one since my enlightenment experience, or maybe a couple of them, but basically the energy starts at your tailbone and rises up your spine and kind of shoots through your crown chakra at the top of your head. And while it travels up your body, it causes an orgasmic experience throughout your whole body, can kind of make you tremble. So it's pretty intense, pretty amazing. And I've had two people right in front of me do this, and so I've started to be able to see, and now it doesn't surprise me. Now I'll look at them and see their eyes rolling back in their head and them, kind of trembling, and I'm like, okay, here we go again.
Well, that sounds to me
Good
like
for
kind
them.
of a sounds to me like kind of a private experience if somebody, to have an orgasm right in front of you. But it's but that
yeah, but
works.
no mess.
No mess, no fuss. Just a huge experience. But I want to get back to Celeste. How is she asking us to work with her now?
So what happened was I was talking to somebody, and she said, "Can you tell me who my guides are?" Of course, I can tell everybody who's around them and anybody who wants to talk to them or anything. But I warn them of the same thing. You don't want to get too caught up in that stuff. You don't want to get caught up in your ego about who's talking to you. So I let them know that, that beforehand. And then I'll tell them, okay, here are some of your guides of the people I see. And so when she asked that, just in particular, this particular person, for some reason, when they were like, I wish I knew who my guide was. And I said, oh, they're such and such. And then I said, I wish I knew who this wonderful woman who is speaking light language, who, whenever she comes through, it just feels like heaven. When she lays her energy on me, it's like, And I was like, I'd like to know who that is. I said that to the person in front of me. I just said, I'd love to know who this lady who does light language is. And right when I said that, I actually saw the word Celeste written in the air right in front of me. And I said, oh, Celeste. And I said, well, thanks for asking that question, because now I know her name. And I hadn't even really dawned on me that it was a woman until that moment, or a feminine, I guess, kind of like a Sophia energy. So then I got curious and went home, and I started asking more questions, and I did some automatic writing, and I was like, Celeste, can I learn more about you and why you're using me and all of this? So I did a big sit down and wrote a bunch of information down, and it seems that there's just this big white room, a big white oval table, and there's about 60 beings that sit around this table, and they all channel information like through to her, and she's like the ambassador in a way. And then she's my personal representative or ambassador for me. And she uses me because I'm unbiased and unconditionally loving of most people I come across. So being that I'm not too judgmental, and I know how to kind of cut through the ego and just come from that heart-centered space, no matter how nasty somebody might be, then they chose to use me because I'm more pure of heart than somebody with ill intentions, or somebody who's like, that might misuse that kind of power or misuse that kind of energy. So, and they said that I have also learned how to balance my feminine and masculine sides. So they wanted me to help the divine masculines and the divine feminines to come into balance. And eventually, I also learned that part of my mission here is to help twin flames come together as a part of that whole process. But originally, she didn't use those words. Anyway, so what she kind of does is, it's like when you get really present in the moment, you don't have these boundaries of the skin and the organs versus the air around you. It like all blurs together. You become just beingness, and you become totally tapped in with Source or Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call it. You become one with all, one with everything around you. And Celeste somehow becomes my bigger body. in a way. Like she becomes, or maybe I become her, we merge. We merge, and she will speak through me. It's like if I already know the information, she'll allow me to speak on it. So say it's about horses. I know a lot about horses. So say the person in front of me is saying, tell me about horses. And I start going on and on and on about horses. She will let me just say everything from my memory, but she'll let me know if there's some kind of a correction to be made. Like she'll jump right in and say, well, like that, but different. And when she like interrupts, I'll say, okay, hang on. And I'll tap into Celeste and I'll say, what did you want to clarify for this person? So she'll explain, well, it's kind of like that, but there's kind of a twist to it with this person or whatever. So she'll interrupt and tell me those things. And sometimes she just feels she knows better almost, or she has a better way of delivering it. So she'll just jump right in. And because I'm in that very open space, I totally allow her to speak through me. So that's when she just, that's when you'll hear like some of the people who've listened to the show can hear the difference between when I'm talking and when Celeste is talking. But we're kind of like an automatic brake system. If something starts to slip, the other tires kind of grip. So it's kind of like that. Like, so even when I'm talking, she is here monitoring, she's here watching, she's here like as part of the material being channeled through me. But like I said, sometimes she'll just take over and say certain things, and then she'll pull right back again and let me come back to the forefront. But we're a team. We work together. So to separate us, to get to the point you were trying to get to separate us would be to make Celeste a big deal. And it would be all about talking to Celeste. And she wants my personality integrated in it somehow I don't know why.
Oh, I do.
It's my relatability, maybe my goofiness, my silliness. I don't know. She wants the combination of the two. She likes how it kind of works together.
Absolutely. I kind of sense that she doesn't, if Celeste is coming through on her own, she doesn't want to be the one to say, you need to cut that shit out. That needs to come from Amy.
Exactly.
Because
and she laughs when I do that.
Of course she does.
We think of heaven as, we think of these heavenly beings as like that they sit up there with their hands on their hips, like scolding you and looking down at you with shame. How could you have just said that swear word? How could you be drinking? How could you be, doing any of this, and shaking their heads? And that, just so you guys know, that is human stuff right there. That is not divine stuff. Divine stuff is all about complete, unconditional love and acceptance. Period. End of story. If there's any judgment in it, it is not of heaven or the divine realm at all. So, feel free to be yourself.
That's encouraging, because we are all ourselves, and we all are, really we're all one, but we're all individuals as well, and we need to, and it's important for us to have our own individuality and to bring things to the table that make sense for us as well, as long as we're doing it in the theme of love and light, and in search of a wonderful outcome. Because there are some people.
I gotta say something. Okay, so anybody who feels like they have to be a nice person or be a good person, that's going to get in your way. You really do have to accept and embrace your shadow side too. Now, some people think that I'm Miss Positivity, and yes, I am very positive. I think it's very important that you keep a mindset that is healthy and that can support you mentally, because you've got to have your own back. So yes, I think that you should believe in yourself, and yes, build your self-esteem, and yes, do things that exhilarate you and excite you, and run after what you feel passionate about. However, if there's any part of you that's saying, I should this, I should that, that is of the devil. That is like total ego. And it is human designed to control. So if you, for example, though, if you feel, guilt or shame or any of those negative feelings, if you learn to embrace them. And I mean, I'm not saying like, I want to go be a person who like stimulates more guilt in my life and brings more shame and I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, it's like you're not condoning the behavior, but you're saying, look, wow, I really respect the power over that when it's here in my presence. When I am feeling really sad, wow, that has a lot of power over me. And when you validate it in that way, that that's an aspect of your ego and that's just a part of being a human being before you become enlightened, then you let go of its hold on you. Nothing's going to hook you, or nothing's going to, if you can't be guilted or shamed or made to feel bad about something, you're going to be thinking much more clearly. You're going to be listening to God's guidance much more clearly. And when I say God, by the way, I mean, I'm talking the universe or whatever term you want to throw in there. Because God to me is like a group of deities. It's everybody. It's your divine guidance council. It is everyone working on your behalf on that other invisible side. So I'm just saying, you've got, this is like total Star Wars here. It's good versus evil, but it's not. When you start to should on yourself and when you start to say, I need to do the good thing, that's Satan's playground. Seriously, like that's not good. You got to do your own thing. And this kind of goes into something I wanted to talk about today too, which is boundaries. You got to have your own boundaries and be looking out for yourself first and foremost. You cannot be responsible for anybody else's happiness ever. Everyone is responsible for themselves. And if you are coming from a guilty place and you're trying to make everything okay for everybody else around you, you'll live your whole life that way and you'll get cancer, because that's what cancer comes from, is people pleasing. So do what you got to do, and do it from a state of integrity as best you can, not to be a good person, but because you want to feel good about what you're doing. Set things in place as best you can from that angle, but, don't let people control you with guilt or how things should be and how you are supposed to shape and form things into the way that they should be, to make that other person more comfortable, because it is up to that other person to make themselves feel comfortable. It is up to them to feel secure within themselves, not you. So healthy boundaries is essential to being a powerful being and stepping into your power and being having that authenticity and having the freedom we're talking about.
Well, let's return to boundaries in a little bit. As a matter of fact, I think the entire next show we are going to talk about that specifically. But I did want to mention, I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about light language. Because the first thing is, the first time I ever saw you do light language, my first initial response was, what the hell is that? And then I started thinking about, Me too, actually.
My jaw dropped.
Well, I was thinking about speaking in tongues, and I had an experience of that when I was a lot younger than I am now, and I wasn't sure what that all meant, and so I started to do some research based upon you and the light language that you use, and discovered that what that is, that whole concept is the other side using energy and vibration to talk to our inner being and our inner soul. The actual language itself does not have to make sense. It's the vibrational tone that it carries with it to the individual that it is designed to help or to talk to. And that's really the essence of the light language. So when you talk it, and by the way, it can take many forms. It can take the form of writing. It can take the form of clicks and pops and things that are just unintelligible. But for you, it's a beautiful language that you speak. It is just phenomenal what you do. As a matter of fact, what we are going to put out there for our listeners is, if you have a question for Amy, and if you have an issue, if you have a problem that you would like Amy to address, what we're going to offer you today is something I think that's really special. You can email Amy through her website, www.amysatori.com, and she will answer your question, and also give you a light language blessing. And we'll wrap that up in an MP3 file, and we will email it to you so that you have it on a regular basis so that you can refer to it. Because one of the aspects of light language that I've learned is that the more you listen to it, the more impactful that it is. Has that been your experience, Amy?
Well, it's very much a live energy. That's what's so amazing about it. And by the way, all of you can speak light language too. It's really our soul's language, but you have to be pretty darn open to be able to let it through. So, but yeah, it's able to. It's like a virus, a good virus. It is able to bypass your ego and go straight into your heart and activate things that you need. So sometimes when I look at a body, I'll see a certain, I'll see a grid, and then I'll see certain parts of the grid have turned dark or died, city lights when certain sections of the city go out. It kind of looks like that, where I can tell that their arm is like completely black, where the rest of their body has, light in it. So basically, whatever that person needs in that particular moment, when they're listening to it at that moment, I will see the light go back into their arm, or I'll see the light go back into their heart. Or sometimes people need protection, so I'll see a bunch of geometric symbols come out and surround them, or I'll see them be surrounded in their environment with these sacred symbols. So it's different and unique for every single person. But when I do a blessing, and I can do one in just a minute here, it affects every single person different. And I have had groups of 5 to 7 people that I do readings on at one time. And I'll ask everybody, what did you feel? And every single person says something completely different. So it's just astonishing. It just shows you the capacity that the other side has and the intelligence. It's just unfathomable, the intelligence that comes through this language, that it's that alive, and that it customizes exactly what that person needs to hear and receive and get through the message. And since I am a channel of love, whatever comes through me is going to be of a loving vibration. I've never had anybody ever have any kind of negative experience from the light language. It's always at least peace. But like I said, there's some extreme situations where, people get healed from it too, and things like that. So, or they heal themselves, I guess you should say. That would be good. But there is one thing that I wanted to mention that we've talked about a little bit, but not a lot on the show. And by the way, being an old radio guy, dead air that's what they call silence on the radio. Dead air is what they call death in the radio business. But in our case, it is very, very important. So when you call for a reading and Amy is talking to you on the air, or if she is, we're reading something from an email that somebody sent us because they're too bashful to come on the air, there can be at times a moment of silence because Amy's reading into the situation and having the conversation with her guides and your guides, if it's about you, that we were talking about, and then they reach a consensus, and then Amy is able to come forth. So when that happens, we just need to be patient and let Amy do her thing. Right, Amy? Yeah, I'll tell you what's going on my side of it. If somebody, for example, asks about a relationship, the first thing I do is I put the two people together standing next to each other, and I look at their energy. And to me, they just look like a couple of flames maybe, or a couple of lines. And I watch what the lines do, and I see how they interact with each other. One of them might be really big and bright, and the other one's kind of dark and short. And so I know that there's one way more positive person, and the other one's kind of, an Eeyore or something. Or sometimes I look at a couple, and one of the people have their back to the other. So this is all Spirit's way of communicating to me what's going on. when I see, somebody's turned their back on the other person, that's obviously not a good thing. So, I mean, whatever they're showing me is not a good thing necessarily, because depending on how it feels to me, I got to try to figure out what's going on. So I might look at somebody turning their back on someone, and then I will ask, rather than doing it out loud, it goes much, much faster if I can just do it in my mind between me and the spirits. So I'll just say, what's going on here? And then I'll see him kind of cross his arms in front of him and look kind of pouty. So then I'll say, okay, and then I go kind of into her energy, and I kind of act like her, and I start talking to him. And I'll try softer tones, or I'll try, hey, why don't you ever turn around and talk to me? I'll try all these different things to see what makes the guy like turn around and face her and listen and see, and then what makes his heart like soften. So I kind of get in both the people's energies, kind of like a puppet, and I just kind of feel it out or ask a lot of questions, and I'll be like, well, what if she this, or what if he this? And I just kind of problem solve, and I do it like rapid fire in my head. I'm doing it like really fast, and I'm turning him around, and I'm turning her around, and I'm making them dance, and I'm making them do all kinds of crazy things to see what's going to make one of them or both of them finally just kind of giggle and let it all go or whatever, So I play around with the energy a lot, and then when I feel like it's something I wanted to describe to the person that I'm with, I'll say, it looks to me like if you were to just come from your heart, speak your truth from your heart, he'll turn around and he'll listen. And then they'll say, well, I've tried that before and this, that, and the other thing. And now with their new information and what I've told them, then I look at his response to what she said. Because the person that I'm watching in my mind's eye is actually reacting to the person who's speaking to me too. So then he'll turn around and he'll look at her and he'll say, yeah, but blah, blah, blah. And then I'll argue his point and say, yeah, you think you're coming from a heartfelt place, but actually you are stating your truth, yes, but you're doing it from a defensive place. And then I'll see him over here like nodding, like, yes, exactly. And then I know I've hit it. So I work with the energy of what I'm seeing in my mind's eye, as well as whoever's talking to me and the feedback they're giving me. And I bounce it all off of each other until it all feels like really cohesive and it works really well. And then I know it's all going to be good. And it's like when I'm working on somebody's body, they'll say, what do I do about this issue? So then I'll start playing around with the energy. I'll pull on it. I'll try to crack it open. I'll try to shake it. I try to do all kinds of things to it. And every bit of it is giving me hints and clues. So sometimes it takes a little bit to try to crack the code and see what's going on. And then once I do, I voice it to the person. They give, again, the same kind of thing. But like energetically, when I'm working on their body, what happens is whatever I originally saw, which in this case would be like the black over the heart, by the time I shine that heart up and it looks beautiful and full and healthy and it's beating like a normal heart and it's bright and red and beautiful, and there's no more black stuff on it, and it feels really healthy, and it might even shine and be vibrant, or it might, the energy might have a rainbow over it or something, kind of showing me, hey, this has been blessed now, like this has been healed. So if either the image that I was seeing turns completely transparent and it's no longer there, or they show me some other sign that it's been healed, then I know that it's healed. And I'll keep working with the person and talking to the person until I see that it's completely gone.
That is really is incredible, Amy. And there's one more aspect to you that I would like to touch on briefly. And that is talking with people on the other side, people that have passed on. And I have an individual in mind that I would like to just touch on real briefly. And this good friend of mine, his wife of 26 years had brain cancer, and she was in and out of hospice and so forth, and it was a very, very difficult time. I one of these days I'm going to have him come on and tell his complete story, but I just wanted, for my own edification, after hearing his story, because what ended up happening was she came home from hospice, she wasn't feeling very well, he took it upon himself to end her life. So he shot her. He ended up going to prison, spent some time in prison, and his life was totally turned upside down. But what I wanted to focus on, which is that somebody that you are capable also of talking to that individual. And I was wondering if you could kind of feel into her first name starts with L, and
I'm already on her.
Okay, go ahead.
The first word I got was impatient. Impatience. He's a very impatient person. And he couldn't let it drag on like that. It feels kind of like a mental breakdown. And it feels like kind of a fed up feeling. She said she forgives him. I'm asking, like, how much was love and how much was impatience? Love 30%, impatience 70%.
Wow.
He still hasn't learned to work on his patience, by the way. He still has quite a temper. And he still kind of insists on having his way sometimes. So he really needs to work on that.
Thank you for that. I will pass that message. But she's well now.
Yeah. And it was so that he could end his own suffering. So
that's what I thought. Yeah.
You know, I mean, and sometimes I have to give bad news like that if I see it. You know, that just feels like she's forgiven him and she's happy and everything's fine. On her end, she's been reunited with everyone she loves. She's over it. She feels good. She wishes he could forgive himself, honestly, because he beats himself up over it. He's really hard on himself. It's not like he'll show that. He's really guarded. But yeah, she knows he's got an issue and still hasn't addressed it. So yeah, he needs to work on himself, and that's what she wants for him at this point. She still loves him, she still cares about him, and she wants him to work on these issues. She was hoping that him, you know, going to prison, it would make him kind of face that stuff, but he just ended up kind of running from it. And now he's out and still hasn't dealt with it, but hopefully he will.
He is going to have to change in a real fundamental way for him to deal with that whole thing in its entirety and really face it. And that's what we all have to do, isn't it? Is that when we have an issue, when we have a problem with ourselves, we need to turn it around and face it. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, you know, we're all going to have uncomfortable feelings and uncomfortable situations happen. But I just talked to this guy, and he just went through this major breakup, and which a lot of people are going through right now. And he kept beating himself up and saying, oh, my gosh, you know, she was pouring out her heart to me the whole time, and I just, you know, had my guard up. I kept pushing her away, and I just wish I would have made an effort. I wish I would have just done something. I wish I would have just opened my heart to her. And he was just so regretful and hurting so much. And I just reminded him, or maybe told him, but it seemed like a reminding, that those feelings aren't serving him. The guilt, the pressure, the shame, all of that isn't going to get her back. So what he needed to do is get into his power. He needs to forgive himself and get in the moment and get out of those thoughts. Because I said the only thing that's causing you the torment and the suffering that you're going through right now is the thoughts you're telling yourself. You could be celebrating the breakup. You could be thinking, you know, being super excited about these changes you're about to go through. You just went through some major, I mean, this was a huge awakening for him. These incredible realizations that he had as a result of the breakup were tremendous. I mean, those are huge, incredible lessons. So I told him, you know, if you're going to go, you know, either way, if you're going to have like a new love or if you're going to go back to her, it doesn't even matter Like, just get passionate about your life and what you're excited to go do. Free yourself of the burden of these icky feelings and go do something that excites you. You know, I told him, go camping, go have fun, go climb a mountain, go do something that challenges you, go do something, you know, break out of your comfort zone and go just embrace life and get excited, because either way, if you go back to your ex, you're going to be like a new guy, and you're going to prove to her that you're like this new, hard, expansive kind of person that went through this big change and transformation. And she'll have more faith in you knowing that you've just gone through this major transformation, rather than, I was like sitting and moping around feeling sorry for myself, beating myself up, eating potato chips and getting stoned all day, you know, this whole time. So now will you take me back? She's going to be like, dude, you didn't do any learning. You didn't do anything. You just sat there moping around, you know. She's going to know nothing's changed. But if he says, hey, I went and climbed a mountain and I went and did this and I went and, you know, whatever, she's going to be like, holy crap, like, where'd that come from? You were never like that. So she might be more trusting of that situation. And if he goes and does that and gets all excited about his life and gets passionate, then he would be ready for the new person. And he'll have learned from the last one, hey, open your heart. Be more vulnerable. Put yourself out there. Just know that you can emotionally support yourself if you fall on your butt, you know. So it's that kind of thing. The bad feelings that we put ourselves through are never worth it. They're never worth it. We got to stay liberated and we got to stay free of those types of feelings in order to keep being used by God to be inspiring and to like be called to greater heights. Those bad feelings only just keep us stuck. That's why I call it like Satan's playground. So don't ever stay stuck in bad feelings. I don't care what those feelings are. Don't ever stay stuck there. Feel them, accept them, validate them, love them, let them be there and be like, hey, here you are. Look at you. Look at how much power you have over me right now. That's pretty, like, wow, look at you. And then you can be like, okay, have you had a nice time? Okay. All right, bye. You know, using some of these exercises, just let it validate it and let it go. But don't stay stuck there.
We've been talking, obviously, with Amy Satori, and you can go to her website, which is www.amysatori.com, and you can book a session with her, and she can help yourself get through some of the stuff that we all go through in life, and can really provide an impact. And now, Amy, as we wrap up this podcast, I would ask you just to give us a light language blessing for this podcast and for everyone who listens to this, so that it can impact them in a very positive way in their own way.
I would love to. Okay, so if everyone can just relax and take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, wiggle around a little bit, loosen up. I'm going to go quiet for just a moment to open up to them coming through. And then you'll hear me talk a really funny language. And just feel wherever you feel it in your body, just allow that to bless you somehow. So hang on just a moment. Ashe ina pakensa la rauruna ika. Hale penso tono ta ika ina taita. Hale shusonto te kempo to la atensa. Hale konshon sonde na aila ketitensa. Hale hona o shosana ela. Abare ina ta tsena ka cha sena aile patonsa. Hale bina ko shosana te tenta anka te tesa bolobona. Hana ha aikan taia. Ha umbo jonsa ndakenda la borona. Assasinto o shasa na aika. Hala umbo jona te tensa. Halakin chansanti polon tonanika ikata zaina. Hala o chansa umbo jonsa ndakena. Hala shosom tandeki pono la inade na aika.
And that's Amy Satori doing a light language blessing for everyone who's listening and for the podcast. And Amy, is there anything else you'd like to add before we close this podcast?
Just always remember that fear isn't real.
I love that. And remember, everybody, please, 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 forever trust in who you really are. And then nothing else matters. We'll see you next time on The Satori Show.
You've been listening to The Satori Show. Please visit Amy's website, www.amysatori.com, to find out more about this incredible talent. The views expressed during this podcast are those of the host, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of management or the owners of this podcast. What you need to know is that Amy is a wonderful teacher, guide, and communicator for the unseen world. What she does not pretend to be is a doctor, fortune teller, seer of world events, or predictor of what is to come. What Amy presents is real, based on her understanding of the world and communication with that unseen world. As always, you're free to decide for yourself as to what to believe. Regardless, we love and accept you completely just as you are. And thanks again for listening to The Satori Show.